specially designed this month na maging break from all the technical topics we've been talking about in terms of workplace well-being. And to start off, I would like to introduce myself. I'm Gabby Liamzon, and I'm the Learning and Development Officer of Positive Workplaces. And with me this afternoon is Yana. Go ahead, Yana.
Hi guys, I'm Yana and I'm a TND intern of PW. Welcome.
Welcome. So we've been with you for the past year, past half of the year, hosting and being with you on Wednesdays to discover different ways on how we can take care of our well-being in the workplace. So our mission is that we co-create cultures that enhance the well-being of the Filipino workforce, and we are able to create those cultures through what we call the positivity ripples. And of course, it starts with you. But we also emphasize that it's a two-way street. It doesn't end with you because kailangan supportive din ng others and even the cultures to even build what we call positive workplaces. So we can start with just a few reminders. So we hope that you have another device or be ready to go to another link. We'll be using Padlet for this afternoon so that we can share our or kung ano na yung open kayong i-share during the discussion. Please prepare your paper and pen and other art materials that you can use as we go through the session. And of course, we highly encourage engagement in the chat box. But please be respectful. So again, we can treat the chat box as a learning tool. So you can feel free to ask questions, express your ideas, but make sure that they are all related to the topic. And if possible, let's avoid sharing pictures, comments, or links that are not related. And feel free to ask questions in our pigeonhole. So I think it will be a smoother discussion if we answer all of the questions at the end of the webinar. So please take a screenshot or just leave this open in your desktop or your browser so that you will be guided accordingly. So yeah, what
And
else, Yana?
yeah, so Joyce also sent the link to our pigeonhole, so you can also click on that. And yeah, for our evaluations, so this will be issued at the end of our webinar. Just some gentle reminders to check the title, email, and name 10 times. So title, email, and your name, because whatever you write down here, ito po yung lalabas sa certificate niyo. And we also don't have attendance, so this will be the only thing that you will need to get your certificate. And if you have any questions or concerns about your email, you can email us at engage@positiveworkplaces.org. But please be reminded that we will only be entertaining your inquiries regarding evaluations up to 1 week after the event. So when we give the link to the e-certificate later or the evaluation form, the form will close in 30 minutes. So make sure to answer that. Yes, so this month, our theme again is harnessing inner strength through holistic wellness. Um, and we've learned last webinar about leveraging fandoms for well-being. So if you were here last webinar, can you please type 1 in our chat box? So mga nagka-comeback dyan. Ayan, si Joyce, si JP, Eunice. Of course, Eunice is here. She was the one who gave the talk. And yeah, so we hope that it really did help you out in some way, made you feel validated. Yung goal namin for this month is to have these webinars as just a breathing space for you guys. So pahinga dahil holidays na, so marami na talagang ginagawa. And but be reminded na this webinar is not a substitute to addressing employee needs or if you have any psychological or mental health concerns. So next slide there. So this is a helpful resource if you guys are in need of any psychological help. This site is not from us, so this is from Silakbo PH, but we wanted to share this with you in case you were in need of this resource. All right. Okay, so I hope you guys are excited for our webinar. Let's give a heart react or kahit anong react na gusto nyo to to express our appreciation for our speaker today. So Ali Hernandez Publico is an artist and writer based in QC. So her work for print and fine art centers around comic books, her personal life experiences, mental health, dreams, and nostalgia. So she has self-published 3 books and participates in gallery shows and art alleys. So she is currently as being trained in focus-oriented expressive art, studying the healing that art provides and how art therapy aids in the creative process. So let's give a round of applause to our speaker for today. Hi, Ali.
Hi, Ali.
Hi everybody.
Good afternoon.
Hi. So, okay. Hi everyone. So, uh, since this talk is going to be on expressive arts, and since it's going to also be both a practical and also a talk that I hope would enrich you as well, to help you find out more about how we can use creative processes in order to I mean, for the betterment of our well-being, whether that's through processing any previous experiences, or specifically for this webinar, we will be focusing on what kind of life you want to have, or the person that you want to be, and making that shift from just imagining what kind of what the life you want would look like into something that into the question of what would you want life to feel like instead. So, and I also figured, because we are talking about expressive arts, it's better to demonstrate it than to just be talking about how everything should go. So so to begin, as my opener, why don't we do a check-in first? Next slide, please. So, actually, okay, sorry, let's just go back to the first slide. So for this specific webinar, I will be, throughout the webinar, we will have different exercises, and I'll just share them briefly now in case there are some, because there are some exercises which require a little bit more personal digging and personal expression. So the first thing that we would be doing is a check-in, setting an intention for this afternoon. In the middle of the talk, we will be having an exercise on self-defining moments. So as early as now, you can start reflecting on what are the moments in my life that I feel are me, who I am, and what they say about me. And the very last activity we will be doing is a letter either to your younger self or to your future self, or you could also do both. You could write both a letter to your younger and future self. So every exercise will last about 15 minutes, 10 minutes to do the art, or if you would like to write, that's also fine. Or if you also want to use your iPad or your phone to draw, that's perfectly okay. Whatever materials you have are perfectly fine to use. And we will open a link also on Padlet for you to share what you have created. So you are very free to just post anonymously, or you could also share who you who you are, what you have, like you could share your name. And you can, the beauty about Padlet also is that you can also write to others whose works resonate with you. But my only request is that you do not give advice, console, or critique others' works in or like making kind of comments that would be a bit intrusive to their process. So, okay, if that's all right with everyone, I think we can begin. So next slide. So, okay, as a check-in, what I usually do with others is that I help everyone just ground together. So if you can find just just sit yourself very comfortably, go into a position that you feel most that just feels right for you. And you could either close your eyes or keep them open. Just do what you need to do to feel present in this moment. Or you could just listen to me talk as well. So at this time, just take note of your surroundings, or you could just focus on whatever art materials you have on hand and just be in the space of quieting yourself. Be able to quiet your mind and take some deep breaths in and out. As you focus on your breathing, just take note of any sensations that you feel in your body. For me, it's the tingling of my fingers, but for other people, it could be a sensation they feel in their feet, or maybe if you're not feeling well today, even a headache that you feel or the tension in your shoulders. And just sit with whatever you feel right now, whatever your body is feeling right now. Whatever you are feeling right now, ask yourself if you can be friendly to this feeling. Maybe you're feeling a lot of things all at the same time, or maybe you're just feeling one thing. And I'd like to invite you to have a friendly attitude towards it. And when you feel ready, give yourself the space to also ask, what is my intention for this afternoon? It doesn't have to be a big intention. It doesn't have to be a grand kind of expectation. It could be something as simple as, I want to show up here for me. And whatever feels right, just sit with that. When you feel ready, you can take any pencils or paper or any art materials that you have on hand, and you have the option to draw or write whatever intention came around for you today. So could we move to the next slide, please? Okay, so here are some questions that can help you as you draw or as you write. And I'll also do the same. I'll draw and write with you. So maybe some questions that could help are, did an intention resonate for you today? And how would you like to keep a record of your experience this afternoon? Not just through this, but maybe the other exercises we'll do. Would you like to draw? Would you like to write? Or would you like to do something different? And let's just take maybe about 10 minutes to come up with something, and we can share about it in the Padlet later. Okay, so I think we have about a minute left. But so far, how is everyone doing? Okay, so for me, I just did something simple also. I wrote at the top what I shared earlier. My intention was to show up here for me. And I just drew this green heart surrounded by purple and different colors and like a little person that's supposed to represent me kind of just floating everywhere here. Um, so I hope that was just a nice little taste of what how we can use art to help ourselves stay grounded, or how we can be present in this moment. I wanted to also share that throughout all of these exercises, I can't claim that they will be therapeutic for you. They can definitely be helpful for you, whether you use them now or later on. But because I am not registered as a therapist, or I'm not registered as a practitioner in mental health or anything, I can't claim that these are intentional to healing anything for you. Um, and from that, I could share a little bit more about what art used in therapy or art used for mental health is like. So if we can proceed to the next slide. So this is a belief that I have also, that every child is an artist. And the problem is how to stay an artist once we grow up, by Pablo Picasso. And I firmly believe that art or any creative process, whether that's through writing or through music or even dance, all of these are gateways to access the inner child. Next slide, please. And for me, growing up, I struggled to figure out who I am as an artist. I love doing books. I love making comics. But I also, as I got older, I also explored paintings. I explored more with acrylic and watercolor, and I always struggled with finding my own style or having a signature look that was just for me. But I realized now in my 20s, after having been through several other experiences that uh, played a big role in finding out who I am as a person, that it may not be about the style, it may not be about the look, or it may not be about the aesthetic of the artwork that I'm creating, but the message that is in there. And as I got older, I found out that the main message that I see throughout all of my work is on mental health and uh, on dreams, on your personal well-being. And I just love this blend of art and psychology together. And from there, I started to research and look more into workshops on art and therapy. So uh, next slide, please. But many of you may ask what art therapy really is about. And I love this description by Marian Leibman, who says that art therapy is about using art as a means of personal expression to communicate feelings. So we are, I think growing up, we have become conscious of the way that we present ourselves to other people. I think we have grown up with an inner critic that's telling us, oh, this is not good enough, or you are not presentable enough to other people. Um, but but what art therapy teaches us is the opposite, actually, to not be conscious about what other people will have to say about the art that you create. The intention of art therapy is not to be impressive. It's not to be really good as an artist per se, or it's not to be skilled at any techniques. Although I would say that art therapy can cultivate those skills, it's not there for that. Its purpose is to be real. I I would like to say that art therapy's purpose is to express your inner feelings or the things that are so difficult for us to say. And next slide, please. That's why we see art therapy as a very effective tool in spaces like hospitals or in elderly homes or um, in in spaces where people experience disease or a severe repressing of your feelings or of your emotions. Whenever you are sick or whenever you are somehow limited as you get older, it's all the more you are limited as well to say what you feel or to fully share what is going down deep inside. And and I find that in spaces like these, that's how art creates that healing space. It's to be able to open up those places where it's so difficult to or it becomes that space where you can open up how you feel, even the things that you don't realize, um, and to be able to fully express what has been repressed there for such a long time. So next slide, please. And so the question also becomes like, what is art exactly? Is it just limited to something that's visual? I now, as an artist and also as someone who's being trained in focusing and expressive arts, I'm learning more and more that in order for me to expand myself as an artist or to expand myself in any practice, really, it challenges me more to try different ways of expression, not just art, but writing or even dance or music and sound. Even though I'm not skilled at it, or even though I'm not brilliant at anything, even though I I tell myself that, you know, it's more about exploring. It's art therapy or the expressive arts in general give us that space to try different things and to see what feels right for you. Next slide. So so in that vein of seeing what feels right for you or exploring, we ask ourselves also, why should we give it a try? Or why is it something worth looking into? I love this quote by Amy Lowell, and we will bring this back up again later, that art is the desire of a man to express himself and to record the reactions of his personality to the world that he lives in. And so that's why also art therapy in a way is very good for people who are into journaling or anyone who is also interested in art for social interactions, for or social art or anything that is anything that reaches out to what people need, especially in spaces of social justice uh, and and our daily concerns as people. Because art is, I find that this is the best definition of what art is for me. It's that we respond to the world around us through the art that we create. And whether that's just what you see or what other people see, the art that we create says so much about who we are as people. And not in a way that you would want to judge the creator or the artist, but it allows you to create that bridge between who you are and the world around you. And so that way it becomes a very, I like to say that art becomes the connector and it becomes the gateway, not just to who you are on the inside, but to those on the outside as well. So next slide, please. And some of you may ask also, what is the difference between art class and art therapy? I shared earlier that that growing up, a lot of us have been conditioned to um, to have like a critical look on what we create, whether that's through art or through writing, and through art classes, that is somehow I wouldn't say the critical side of us gets stimulated that way, but then it does help us develop those skills. The intention of an art class is to become better at making drawings, to be better at painting, or through clay, or anything, any different medium that you choose. While art therapy is different in that way, where it focuses more on self-expression. The intent of art therapy really is to try different things and to be willing to fail, whatever failure even means. And I'd like to say that art therapy, the goal of it is to really be as authentic as you can be through the things that you create. And while art classes stimulate imagination, art therapy stimulates your experiences, and not just the things that you have been through as a person, the painful stuff or the happy stuff, but also the emotional experience as well. It attends to the feelings deep inside that you didn't know were even there. And next slide, please. I had my first taste of it sometime in 2016, whenever I experienced my very first art therapy class. And it was very different from what I expected. Typically, before, I would expect that, oh, art therapy would be used to help me diagnose a person, or I would use an artwork and judge it to see what kind of experiences this person must have been through. But it's nothing like that. I find that art therapy is more about empowering the creator to tell their own story. So in the space that we had, next slide, please. In the space that we had a wonderful time being able to share the story behind whatever we created. And for most of us in this group, we weren't really practiced artists, or we weren't exactly trained as artists either. But at the end of it, you could see that they were creating these amazing kind of like installation style artworks or art pieces. And looking back at these now, I'm just amazed also by whenever I recall the stories behind these, they amaze me until now. And so the next slide, please. And that is because we cultivated the space together. It's not about it's not about trying to be the best. It's not about like being awarded for having the greatest artwork or whatever in the group or something, but it was about sharing who we are with another person through this medium of paint and paper, or of crayons, or whatever we had at that time. And as you can see here, I was the youngest actually in the group. And at the time in 2016, there weren't a lot of people talking about art therapy, or I didn't really see a lot of expressive arts classes at this time. In fact, our teacher was a British Lebanese guy, and he was there just for that class. And you could see that despite having different backgrounds and despite being of different age groups and all of that, this was a wonderful space for us to connect. And that goes on to my next slide, where I talk about how healing takes place when we connect the gaps in between. That was a very healing space because we got to connect. And the more that we create art that helps us connect with ourselves, with other people, or even connecting our own experiences with each other, it becomes a space where we can also heal, and art and healing become one and the same process. Next slide, please. And I think one way to do that, or one way that I've found out how to do that, is I love also how comics can be used in art therapy as well. I find that comics are the perfect blend of artwork and writing. And through my research, I also saw that comics are used, in fact, in DBT, or dialectical behavioral therapy, for conflict resolution. So in most cases, what you would do in a practical sense is that you would have these small boxes for your comic. And in the first box, you would draw the problem, and then at the end box you would have the solution, and it's up to you how to fill in those in-betweens. And it helps you change the narrative in whatever situation you have. So if something doesn't work out or something doesn't feel right, the space that goes in between, the connections that you make in between, are there to be changed. And it's a very flexible kind of medium that I love using for myself, and I also love suggesting to other people. And I think one of the best ways that I could demonstrate it for you is to also share a comic that I have done as well. Next slide, please. So this is a full comic that I made back in 2022 when I was going through something pretty heavy, pretty difficult. So, and it opens with this: I've asked the world, what am I good for? And for years, it hasn't answered me. I asked the world, what do you want from me? And for years, it hasn't said a word. I tried to create meaning myself, tried to transform grief into sculptures of unpolished marble, tried to store my heartaches in bottles and paint with watercolor tears. And in the trial and error of meaning making, I've lost all my dreams in the process. I've stopped asking the world, what do you want from me? And instead ask myself, what is the world that I want? Let's just stick to that last slide. So from there, I wanted to share this comic because, as you can see, all of the in-betweens, none of them worked. If you could go back to the in-betweens also, I was trying to make sculptures of unpolished marble, of like to represent my grief, and they didn't work. I would bottle up my tears and try to paint with them. I would I even lost all my dreams in the process of figuring out what is the world that I want, or what does the world want from me. But at the very end, you can see the solution was not to find what the world wanted from me, but to flip the question around. Could we just go to the previous slide for a little bit? So I've stopped asking the world, what do you want from me? And instead ask myself, what is the world that I want? So I feel like that is one way to just demonstrate how you take yourself on this journey and you figure out what is going on for me at this time. What are the steps that I can take? And if they don't work, maybe the answer to that is to just flip the question around, or to have a different perspective on things. And I shared earlier that in the practical sense, making comics like this are typically used for conflict resolution, or making decisions as well about the life that you want to have, or what next step you want to take. Maybe it's about going abroad, or maybe you might even want to decide, should I stay in my job or not, or should I stay in this relationship or not, or something like that. And the more that you practice with this kind of exercise, or these kinds of comics, if you choose to do them, the more that you have a sense of who you are. And so that leads us into what self-defining moments are about. Next slide, please. So this was a concept that I learned while I was still taking my master's in psychology. I'm not anymore, but I realized that through something that I did like this with myself, that I realized I was able to separate what would be healthy for me to do versus what wouldn't. And so the concept of self-defining moments comes from the narrative Story of Lives by Dr. Dan P. McAdams, where every person is the protagonist of their story. So what we did as in like using comics to resolve a conflict, or to put ourselves in a situation and see how it would turn out, that is making you the protagonist, or maybe main character of your own story, and figuring out where you would like this story to go. And throughout our lives, we define ourselves by very significant moments that we've had, whether it's children, teenagers, and young adults, and how this creates a story for who we are as we get older. So now, as an exercise, let's take about 10 minutes to reflect on maybe a few self-defining moments that you might have. You could have just one or a maximum of 3 for now. Or if you're not ready to do this, you can do it on your own time. Or you could start as early as right now and see where you want to take it. So um, what I would suggest to do is, if you want to draw, you can make circles, or you could make squares, or whatever shape feels right for you, and draw these little pictures of the memories that you want to use to define who you are. So for me, I drew this little picture of me as a 3-year-old girl, drawing on a round table with yellow flowers on my desk, with like drawing with crayons. And this was the time when we were living in New York, and this was the self-defining moment meant for me that I knew ever since I was a kid that I wanted to be an artist, or I just loved drawing. And later on in life, I experienced a car crash sometime in 2022. And while that's not really the happiest moment of my life, it led me to making that comic that I just shared with you just now. So any moments that you can say with definitiveness that this is who you are, feel free to, if you don't feel comfortable drawing, you can also just write it out as well. So you can create any shapes that you want, you can break the frames. And I would also suggest making connections with your past memories, your more recent ones, and see whatever feels right to you. And then we could take about another 10 minutes to do this, and you can share them in the Padlet when you're free to do so. So, and I don't think we were able to share anything from the Padlet earlier from the previous exercise. So we could take some more time to do that for this one. So, okay, maybe we can come back in about 9 minutes now to be able to share what we've made. I just want to acknowledge all of the artwork and the writings that are already being shared to the Padlet. You may also add comments to those whose artworks resonate with you, or maybe if their writings say something that speaks to you, you can also share that with them. Okay, maybe we can take about 5 more minutes before we continue with the next part. Oh, we could keep the Padlet on, actually. I mean, we would just wait for a little bit until, because it seems that there are a number of people who are still sending their things in. Are there also items in the chat as well? Because I couldn't read them for some reason. My screen got frozen. Either Yana or Gabby, if there are questions or anything that was shared in the chat.
Oh, most of them were intentions when we were
Okay.
off. Yeah, so some of the answers were to reclaim my thoughts. Of- Another answered, I want to learn more about myself, my emotional health this past few days. Some is to just give themselves love and care this afternoon.
Mhm.
We also have an art instructor joining us,
Oh, hello.
and their intention is to find more strategies to connect with their students to the art.
Mm.
Yeah, and if I missed anything, please feel free to share them as well.
Yeah, a lot of intentions in the chat. And then also, marami ring hearts from when you shared your comic. I think a lot of us could really relate to it. And they like your artwork as well as the message that was in it. Thank you for sharing that with us, Ali.
Thank you for the space to share. Thank you. Wow, so many beautiful works that are being shared in here. Wow. Thank you. Oh. Hmm. Okay. So I think you could continue sending on the Padlet, and thank you for everything that you have shared so far. We can continue with the rest of the presentation as well, just for the sake of time. So, okay. Okay. So this was a question that was brought up to me when and I think there were also there were some very heavy things that can come out while we reflect on our self-defining moments. And for some people, the question then becomes, what can we do if the self-defining moments are too painful for us? And it's valid, definitely. There are times that we reflect on moments in our lives and we think that we can't rise from these anymore. And we need to hold these as precious as well. So that is where how we can use art therapy for mental health as well. So next slide, please. So on the topic of art and mental health, I was brought to the study that I read about a psychologist named Dr. James Pennebaker. And he conducted an experiment among several groups of college students who were visiting a certain health center. So in one group, he had this group engage in emotional writing where they, for about 6 months, as much as they can within those 6 months. So they would write not just about what happened within their day, but how they felt, what they were going through, the things that were going through their minds as they were, throughout the day. And for another group, he asked them to do the writing exercise as well, but he just asked them to write more about the mundane and the everyday events, such as maybe going to the grocery store or uh, just hanging out with friends, or things that didn't involve that emotional, how do I say this? That emotional, it didn't have an emotional connection with the day. And one last group that he didn't have them do anything. So all of these students, at the end of the 6 months, he found that the students who intentionally engaged in emotional writing throughout those 6 months reduced their visits to the health center and became healthier. And I may be wrong, but if I recall, those who engaged in just the everyday writing without intentionally talking about what they were experiencing didn't have much of a difference from those who didn't engage in the writing at all. And so from that experiment, he came up with this concept of catharsis in the next slide, where, as I shared earlier, it's about the unloading or the expressing of deep-seated emotions in order to find relief from pain. And whether that's through creating drawings, or the act of drawing, or the act of writing, or through dance, or through music, or anything like that, catharsis is such an important experience, I feel, for anyone who creates. I feel like we are able to connect best to artworks that are created through catharsis, things that we can relate to, but not for the sake of relating, but because the artist, him or herself, was able to show their true feelings, or show their true experiences through whatever they have created. Next slide, please. And that's where I also learned more about how art is so useful in recalling memories. I shared this quote from Amy Lowell earlier about how art is the desire of a man to express himself and record the reactions of his personality to the world around him. So you take that a step further, and as you create your artwork, as you create your artwork, or you write, or you create anything that, or any act of creation, basically, that allows you to recall pictures of your past, anything that helps you recall who you are. And as we shared earlier, the self-defining memories, like remembering that this happened to you, and this was important, and this is valuable to the story of who you are. Finding out what stories we tell ourselves, or the stories that we remember, they strengthen our identity, and they strengthen our memories of the time that they were made. And I find that it's because art is, in a way, the easiest way to record such memories, because when you take care of your artwork and you keep it maybe in like a journal, or even when you're writing, and you look back at the things that you either wrote or drew, whether they were like from a year ago or 10 years ago, you recall, oh, this is what I was experiencing at that time, and look at how far I've grown now. Being able to make that connection to where you were back then and to who you are now also creates healing, and that facilitates the healing process as well. Next slide, please. So this is an exercise that I do with grief support groups, and I didn't want to share the actual artworks to protect their identity because these are very private works. So, for example, one of the activities I love to do with people is I have them draw on paper bags. They can draw the face of the loved one who passed away, but a lot of times, of course, it's very painful to do that, especially if maybe you haven't thought about this person in a long time, or they were someone who passed away on very unfortunate circumstances, or and for whatever reason. So I also encourage them, if you can't draw their face, or if you feel afraid of doing that, why not draw a symbol that represents them? And for me, when my mom passed away, I always think of tulips when I remember her, or I think of flowers, but specifically tulips. And what I also instruct any participants to do when they do something like this is I have them write their memories on cards and put them in these paper bags. So they can be, and I welcome any memories. These could be positive or even negative ones, or even neutral memories. So that's one way to be able to honor your memories of those who you love through art. Next slide. And I think on a personal level also, when it comes to being able to look at your past and use art to help you make those connections to what you have been through and the things that you don't feel comfortable talking about. There is this concept in trauma therapy specifically called rescripting, or changing the negative self-beliefs that resulted from the trauma that you experienced and strengthen the positive memories. Now, I want to emphasize also that it's not about erasing these negative beliefs as if they never happened. It's not about saying that this is not part of me anymore. It's not about saying that I don't want this in my life anymore. It's not about also returning to those painful memories to re-traumatize yourself, but it's about strengthening the memories that make you feel good. It's about strengthening the times in your life where you say that this is me at my most powerful. And I personally can't do that, but the best ways to be able to engage in this kind of self-therapy would also be to seek help from a counselor or a therapist who can help guide you through that journey. And on your own time, the main goal of all of this is to really change your relationship with yourself in a positive way. I think at the end of the day, the goal is always to ask ourselves, if there was a healthy voice that could step in for me at this time that I needed help, what would they say? What kind of voice, what kind of words, what would heal me at the time that I needed healing the most? And is that something that you can offer yourself? Is that, do you have and asking yourself if you have the space to accommodate this kind, helpful, nurturing voice. And as much as possible, I try to do that in my own comics as well. So, oh wait, I forgot there's another slide. So next slide, sorry. When I also engage with other groups, one of the things that I also do is I use clay I ask them to shape their fears using the clay. And once they've talked about it, once they have shared where this came from or what this was, I encourage them, if they feel like it, to transform it into a symbol of courage. And more often than not, it becomes a very, I guess, symbolic, and it becomes a very self-defining practice as well, to be able to have that strength to change something that was painful into something that defined them in a positive way. And that's what we want to do in trauma work in general. Next slide. So these comics are for me the way that I rescript my own pain, or the way that I rescript my own life. So this comic specifically is about dreams. And here I say, because to dream again is to heal. And a dream is a script in your head written by what your heart loves. The next slide. And it took me some time, but I realized I love showing up for others because I've learned to show up for myself. So now I'm chasing a dream instead of a deadline. And no matter what, I know that it feels right this time. I feel looking at this, the drawings that I made where I talk to my younger self. We would be, the last exercise for today is we would be writing a letter to ourselves. If you feel comfortable drawing who you are right now with your younger self, I realized while making these comics that it created such an impact on me. And I never realized that until I could see it for myself visually. And my therapist always told me that what we see impacts how we feel. And that's also why memories are so strong for us, because we see them and we experience them. And they are things that are not easy to erase. But so in the space of being able to see yourself mirrored as your current self and your younger self, I find that the healing takes place when you can offer that kindness to your younger self, even if it's in a drawing. And in the next comic, where I talk to my 21-year-old self. This was a comic that I made for my birthday, actually, where me at 21 speaks to me at 29. And I tell her, my 21-year-old self, you will constantly feel small compared to others, but they too are trying their best to win at this non-existent race. I wouldn't want you to lose your life trying to be like everyone else's. Next slide. Because the more I follow after another person's picture of success, the less it looks like me. And 21-year-old me, in every glimmer of success, it's always you that I see. Next slide. And my 21-year-old self says, so I do grow into the person I've always needed after all. That's success too, isn't it? It sure is. So I also wanted to show that you can have a dialogue with your younger self as well. And there's a healing that comes into that as the two. When you talk to a previous version of yourself, you realize that who you are now is, in fact, a future self already. You don't have to idealize a better version of who you are from who you are right now. Because you are the person that your younger self needed. And doing something like this, engaging in this kind of writing or these kinds of artworks, can help strengthen who you are in the present by even remembering what you needed back then. So I think the next slide is the last exercise. I think. Oh wait, no, sorry. This is okay. Well, I wrote this to myself now. This is from my 28-year-old self. So every mistake is a story, and every story needs a happy ending. And even reading this to myself right now, I feel that this is the kind of happy ending I want to offer to everyone. That everything that we have been through, everything that you have experienced, you always have the potential to write it in exactly, or to draw it in exactly the way that you want. And so our last exercise then is to write, or you could write a letter or create an artwork dedicated to either your older self or your future self, or to your younger self. Or you can also make artworks or write letters to both. And maybe some questions you would like to explore are, what would you want to ask them, or what would you want to tell them from now? And what would you want them to know? And you could feel free to share this on in the chat or on the Padlet as well. And let's give ourselves maybe another 10 minutes to do this, and then we can end today's session. So Okay. I don't know if there are any new, if there were any letters in the chat or, let me see. Okay. Oh.
Oh, Ali. Can you read? Are you able to read them?
No, because I was so sad because I was forced out of the room for a little bit because of the because my net disconnected for like 5 seconds. But oh,
Please, but can you read the Padlet right now?
okay, I could, yes.
Yeah. These are such wonderful entries. And thank you so much, everyone, for showing up this afternoon. Go ahead.
Yes. Okay. Well, thank you, everyone. I would just, I don't know. I don't feel comfortable reading them aloud because they're so personal. I don't want to, uh, I guess, if any of you would like to have yours read out loud, I would love to know. But thank you for being part of this, and also thank you for sharing these vulnerable but powerful works, with me, with everyone in today's session. And someone even wrote to both their younger selves and their future selves at the same time. Um, so many lovely drawings in this space. Thank you, everyone.
Yes, and they're
Okay.
all showing appreciation in the chat box as well.
Thank you.
Emojis, and I think they also resonate with what they are seeing in the Padlet.
Sian, thank you. Thank you, Monica, also. Naomi, Princess. Thank you.
Yeah.
So we can, I had one last slide to end it. It was just a drawing, the very first drawing that I made whenever I started these inner child comics. And very fittingly, it said, "Here is to the future that we dream of." So thank you, everybody who came over, who attended, and thank you for sharing as well. If you feel that you would need further help, or you would want to share these with share the drawings that you made today with a professional who can help you, we want to refer you again to Silakbo PH, made by our friend Risa. And also here are some crisis hotlines that you can use to help you as well. So yeah, thank you. Thank you.
Yes. And maybe you can invite
Oh
them
yes, I plugged myself
also
too.
follow
Let's plug myself as well. So,
you.
if you would like to follow me on Instagram, I mean, I update mostly on Instagram. You could find my comics and my paintings on either Ali Publico, or my paintings are for under this account, ahp.studio.mnl. Or if you would like to collaborate in the future, you can also email me here at ahp.studio.mnl@gmail.com. So thank you, everyone.
Thank you. Thank you so much, Ali. So we just check in. Kamusta po kayo? Kamusta kayo?
Yes, how's everybody?
Ating exercise. Maybe you can share them in the chat box. And we can
Mhm.
already see a lot of gratitude pouring in. And they really enjoyed the session as well. Yan. Let me know, Yana, if you can see any answer. So
Yeah, just
just want to check in kung kamusta kayo.
Yes.
Hmm.
Oh. Oh.
I think they were really energized, and I saw someone said that they were inspired to start painting again.
Oh.
Such a nice space, a great webinar, someone also said.
There's a question about the evaluation form.
Now we're gonna get to that. Hold on.
Okay.
Yeah, because
Goes
it's all
on.
time. And thank you so much for joining us this afternoon. So hold on. I'll flash the evaluation form first so that for those of you who are already needing to go, because I know some of you are in the office, you can take a quick screenshot or just scan the QR codes you can see on the screen. Or you can just click on the link that Jewel or Joyce will be sending in our chat box. So again, please check the name, the title, the email address, and the name that you will type, because kung ano po yung ilagay nyo, yun po ang lalabas sa certificate ninyo. Yeah. So I'll just give you a few minutes to just answer the QR code you can see on the screen. I'm gonna check if there are already questions in our pigeonhole. So Ali, let us know if you can still stay for a while.
Of course. Yes.
We let them out. And ayan, sabi ni Christine, bawled my eyes out kanina. Same. Sabi ko nga yan, kung hindi lang ako I don't need to talk afterwards, maybe I will go all in pa.
I know. Yeah. Ako din sinimulan ko siya and I was like, okay. Let's reserve it later, Gabby.
Yeah.
Gawin natin.
Magbubukas pa kami ng camera. So,
Oo nga eh.
yeah. Okay. So we have
I was-
all
Yeah, sorry.
Oh,
I was
fun.
crying. I was writing my own letter too, and I was making myself cry too. So, thank you, Monica. And okay, there's a question. Okay. How to know if you are doing the right thing? That's okay. I think sometimes we ask ourselves if we are doing whenever we make big decisions, and we ask ourselves if we are doing what is right, or if this decision is going to be the healthiest thing for us at this time. And the thing is, to be very honest with you, I think it's with accepting that you don't know yet until you really try what you will feel most drawn to. And well, there are times when you really have to, when it's like a life or death situation and you have to act on something right away. In emergency situations where you have to take the time out to help someone else, or but oftentimes we question if a decision is right for us to do in that moment. And I think the best thing to do is to ask ourselves, like, what is the healthiest thing that I should do for myself right now? Is staying in this position, staying in this job, staying in this relationship, staying in whatever the big questions that we are staying in that are troubling us feels right now? That's something we ask ourselves always, if this is healthy for me to do right now or not. So I think that's the best way to be able to make any decisions. And sometimes we just really don't know, or we can't tell. Sometimes what I also do is I write a pros and cons as also, like pros and cons of if I do this thing, and pros and cons if I don't do this thing. So that might be another thing that can help. I hope that would answer your question.
Yeah.
And
a follow-up question, and maybe a more granular one, focusing on what we just did. How I think another way to view the question is, how will they know if they are doing the right thing in terms of expressing themselves? Right? Because similar to the quote that you showed, like we tend to censor ourselves as we grow older. We tend to think what's right and wrong when we're doing something. So maybe something to that effect. How do we?
If we are, because with the training that I have in focusing and expressive arts, the main thing that I learned was being able to trust yourself when you are in a process. Not just trusting the process, but trusting yourself in the process too. And sometimes it's like, am I doing, like, asking yourself if I am doing this the right way, I'm not sure if this is specific to art, or if this is specific to, or if this is for anything else creative that we are doing in general. But then it's because I also ask myself, will I be happy with what I am creating later on? Like if I were to see this 5 or 10 years from now, would I be happy with what I am doing? And does this align with my values also? Um, and that's how I think that's how we become conscious, or we become more aware of if what we are doing right now, if the things that we are sharing with other people, or the things that we are creating, or I mean, even on the basic level of how we treat others, like this is it. That's another way to gauge that whether if this is the kind of legacy that I would want to leave with people, and so on. So I hope that helps.
Yes,
Um,
definitely helps.
so there's a question: how to get rid of the shame and perfectionism. I do not. Another this is another. I have a lot of most of the questions that are like a lot of things that are about getting rid of them or knowing definitively. For the most part, I would answer with I do not know because because it's a because it's a process, and until now I'm very much like, I even before this talk I was thinking to myself, like, what if I confuse them, what if I are the things that I'm sharing going to make any sense to anybody? And like they would always just, yeah, they, I mean, there is that um I don't think I think as human beings, shame and perfectionism are human things to experience, but they are not the things that help us move forward, actually. I made something because I do have because my notebook right now is a what do you call this, it's my art therapy notebook. So there was something that I wrote before about how it's time to heal for the need for perfection. And and for me, I don't know if that will resonate to whoever asked this question, but then that when I told myself that perfection is kind of the disease and not really and not the cure. Perfectionism is the disease and not the cure. That's what healed me also, because we 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 like to celebrate people who work very hard or who push themselves to the limit, to the point of sometimes hurting themselves. And now I'm learning to take a step back and realize, okay, it's not that, okay, maybe we need to see other people in a deeper way than just expect them to be the best all the time. So and applaud them whether they show up as the best or even when they can't give anything at all. So yeah, I hope that answers this question. So how can you motivate yourself or push yourself a little into integrating mental health wellness through art? I usually do this through writing, but there are times that I feel like I can't reach the deep feeling. Hmm. That's so I think what I also believe is that because everybody is different, every every individual has their own thing that makes them uh that makes them that's more natural to them, let's say, or that makes them feel alive more than other things. So I if writing is the thing that works for you, I think I think that's beautiful. I think it's acknowledging that you love this thing, that you love writing, that it's your thing, it's your passion, and this is where you best express yourself. Um, and when it comes, if you want to introduce more things like art and music or dance, I invite you to start with writing, and then you can later on integrate art, or whatever that looks like for you. Start with a medium that you like first. Maybe if since you like writing, start with pens. Start with if you want to invest in those really pretty ink glass pens, you could try those. I've never tried them myself, but it's always worth a shot. And then explore, try to see what feels right, even like making circles or drawing like very flowy movements, especially through art. It's like the best things to try are things that help you flow. And I mean, even for me, when I try to liken this to me trying to experiment with movement or with dance because I'm not very graceful, but I try to see what feels right for me or what feels good when I move. You always chase after what feels good and not try to force the depth or the not try to force intention or meaning right away because that comes in the more that you access what feels good to you. So
Really immersing yourself first and then figure out where that leads you.
yes, you start from a level of comfortability and then go deeper. So yeah. Mhm.
Maybe we can
So
answer one more.
oh, one more. Okay, let's. There's a maybe how we can encourage teens to be open or express their emotions to art. Will this be a good reference on how to help them in the situation they're in? Thank you, Ali. So, I think because I've done workshops where I work with teenage girls and also I've also done workshops with teenage in big groups and teen camps and so on. And I the th- I what I always try to do in order to encourage younger people to express themselves is to be vulnerable first myself and to share that that I'm not here to try and fix things. I'm not here to make things better. I genuinely want to know you as a person. I want to know what has healed you. I want to know what has hurt you. I want to whatever you share with me, I won't force you to fix it in the here and now. And it takes I mean there's a part of that teaches you that you need to let go also. Sometimes you need to let go of structure in order for their real selves to come out. So even when I do workshops like these, there are times when people really just get lost in creating art and they end up ripping different papers off tables and uh, or they end up sometimes like breaking crayons, and it's part of being able to explore, and I welcome that also. um so I think there are other materials out there online that you can find with I think there's a book called Art Therapy Groups by Marian Leibman. I think that can help also because that's more intentional on using art therapy for groups. And I think there's a section there specifically for families and for teenagers. So there are several resources out there if you want more practical advice or practical activities to use.
Yes, thank you so much, Ali. Is there
Thank
any
you.
closing message you would like to give our participants as we close this afternoon session?
Um, I'm not sure. Like maybe uh I don't know. I don't know. I couldn't come up with anything. So sorry. It's okay. Maybe it's okay not to know. Yeah, it's okay not to know. Like when we are talking about the future, even when we're talking about who your future self is, it's okay not to know. So this is a space where you can explore it. Thank you to everybody who came and who
Yes,
stayed around for the questions too.
thank you so much, Ali. And they're asking if you can share the title of the book in the chat box so that they
Oh,
can to access it. Yeah,
okay.
so that
Okay.
percent.
Okay, sorry.
Yeah, we'd love to present the certificate of appreciation. Yana, would you do the honors of reading the citation?
Again, thank you, Ali, for really providing this safe space for us. And I loved seeing everyone's creativity through art, through writing. And we present this certificate of appreciation to you for generously providing your time and expertise as a resource speaker for our webinar for the person you want to be, Expressive Arts for Your Future Self. And this is signed by our Chief Enabling Officer, John Baluyot, and our Chief Wellbeing Officer, Nikki Vergara. Thank you so much, Ali.
Thank you. Thank you. Oh.
for staying until the end and for really participating in all the different webinars that we had for the month of October. So yeah. Um we're also nakalimutan ko ilagay yung yung natin presentation for next month. So we already have a theme, so please just feel free to follow us on Facebook, and we're going to post the links to register for our November webinars next month. So we all hope to see you there. And if you missed any of the session, or I think if you want to replay this session, you can head on over to our YouTube channel and rewatch all of our webinars posted there. And yeah, since you already have the post evaluation forms, or if ever na disconnect kayo because the internet connection's really wonky because of the weather, you can again scan the QR codes you can see on the screen, or just click on the links that you can see in our chat box. But again, thank you so much everyone for joining us this afternoon.
Yeah, I'll also be revisiting yung yung activities kanina and reading through the Padlet. Ang dami rin kasi talagang sharing. So it's so encouraging and validating them. Thank you, everyone.
Thank you, everybody.
Thank you, Ali.
Thank you,
Thank
Ali.
you. Thank you.
So if you want to secure your slots already, Jewel already shared the link in our chat box. So please do register, send it to your colleagues, your friends, so that you can see what's in store for you in November.
Grabe, November na.
I know.
Oh my God.
Before is almost done.
Oh my gosh.
Bilis.
And that dawned on us today.
Oo nga.
Of October tomorrow.
Yeah, happy Halloween.
Oh,
Happy Halloween talaga. Wow. So true.
Everyone, we're gonna close the room in a few, maybe in a minute. So please make sure that you have all the links and you can just scan the QR codes, take a screenshot so that you can answer when your internet connection is more stable. We're gonna leave it open until 5:10 siguro, since we were a bit late in showing the evaluation form. So don't you worry, we got you.